All right, guys, welcome back to the Natty News Daily Podcast. As you can see, we're down Leroy, so I'm taking over MC, I guess, for now until I get banned like Dan did. So we're down Leroy, but we picked up none other than Chris Barakat. Just competed this past week. Lot of knowledge coming from this guy. So we're going to pick his brain a little bit today, talk about the competition, talk about how he's adapted and evolved in his training philosophy. So why don't Chris, real quick, give any of the listeners that don't know who you are, which probably very few, if any, a little bit of rundown on who you are, the background, and kind of what you're doing. Because I find, if we're talking evidence-based natural bodybuilding, you're it, like you're living it.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you, guys. No, thank you for having me on. I guess Leroy might have DM'd me first, right, to get on for this, but I love what you guys are doing because I fucking love natural bodybuilding, and it needs all the exposure it can get, and it needs just the camaraderie, the eyes on it, the coverage. Like, I love what you guys are doing. So huge kudos to you guys. Back in the day, there was a podcast before like podcasts were popular. This is a long time ago. It was called Natty Talk Radio, and it was by Brett Freeman, and I believe Eric Ruiz was his co-host. I could be wrong there, but that shit was dope. And it was like when freaking Sean Clarita was still in the WMBF. So that's like
with you see the hoodie too.
Yeah. So that was like a long time ago, and I feel like you guys are picking that role up and are doing a great job with it. So awesome work, you guys. In regards to me, I'll try to keep it brief. I started competing in 2011, September of 2011, as a teenager. I was 19, and I basically wanted to do a show to challenge myself in a competitive fashion, because I used to take Kung Fu very seriously when I was younger, and then basketball very seriously. And then after high school, I didn't have a competitive outlet, and I was already into training and stuff. So one of my buddies in college did a natural bodybuilding show. I didn't know what natural bodybuilding was. I went to support him, and I was like, this is freaking cool. Like, I need to give this a try. So I did it at 19, and then that changed my life. It changed the trajectory of what I wanted to study. And I just dove into my passion. So I ended up getting my bachelor's in athletic training. I originally was going to do the physical therapy route. And I knew that was like an amazing foundational education for PT. And then I came across this master's program that was exercise and nutrition sciences. And the lab there was really focused on bodybuilding research. So I ended up shifting gears, not going to PT school, and going to the University of Tampa for that master's. And I've been working there in the lab since late 2015, early 2016. So I've been doing research for the last 5 years, literally like bodybuilding research, not other kind of exercise science stuff, just bodybuilding stuff. So very, very fortunate. I teach there part-time so I can research as much as I want, and I coach full-time. So that's me in a nutshell, man.
Yeah. And I absolutely love it, because you're spot on. Like, your lab is putting out like information for the bodybuilders. There's no extrapolation. All these other studies, you try and look at like untrained individuals and see how it might fit the bodybuilders, but like, you guys are taking bodybuilders, and like I love the stuff that I'm seeing. So it's exciting. So yeah,
absolutely.
All right. And then that's the background on you. Let's talk about how this weekend went for you. Good weekend overall, right?
Absolutely.
Good way to kick off the season, huh?
Strong start, man. Strong start.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it was really cool. So part of the reason why I wanted to compete this weekend was, again, because it was a decade. It was like me celebrating my own decade in the sport. I literally competed, I believe it was September 27th, 2011. And now I just competed, last weekend of September 2011. Same exact thing. Being in Long Island, like back in my home state. And I felt like I was reliving the same weekend 10 years later. It was wild. It felt
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was like nostalgic, yet like just spiritual and emotional. It was really cool. The show was great, man, in terms of the bodybuilding class. I was really disappointed with the numbers as a whole, because it was a pro-am show. The pro divisions were like basically empty. It was heartbreaking. again, it was heartbreaking because I want to see the sport grow. I love that you guys are promoting the sport. So seeing small numbers is heartbreaking because I've been attending this show since 2012, and I used to see how big it was, how many competitors were in it, how stacked the amateur show was, and how stacked the pro divisions were. And it just wasn't the same. I was very fortunate that the lightweight bodybuilding class was stacked and that the overall amateur bodybuilding class was good, but I was heartbroken about the rest of the show, to be honest with you.
Why do you think that is then? Do
I
you
don't know
just
if I
do
should
the
talk
competing
PC,
requirements, or do you
talk
think
PC or just keep
you
it
don't
real.
have to be PC on here, man?
Yeah, no. So there's less incentives for athletes at this point. So for the pros, the prize money used to be shared on a poster. And believe it or not, a lot of pros in natural bodybuilding, especially back in the day, even though the money was pretty darn small, it was still a small motivating factor to do the show.
It is, yeah.
When you're a pro and you don't know how much you're going to get paid, you don't really, I don't know, it's just not as enticing, right? Yeah, there's pro money, but like, okay, am I getting $100 check or am I getting a $2,000 check? There's quite a difference there.
Well, actually, James and I had that discussion because I've been laying out my season. I'm pro eligible in the OCB, and that's something I think about. Like, what show do I want to do? It's like there's a show I can make a little bit of money, like,
Yeah, or
that's
get your money back for as
that's
much
what I mean. And
time
not
even.
that I'm making money. Yeah, I'm netting probably even.
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah, to have that opportunity though is nice, and to know what you're gonna get. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I heard some of the pros complain about that. So I think taking their opinion, that's what their some of their issue is. But yeah, there's just multiple levels to it. I also think even though it was technically a super pro qualifier for the amateurs, sorry, this as I get a phone call, this Zoom stops. Can you guys hear me?
Yep,
We can
we still hear you fine.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah. Let me make sure my phone's on. It is on Do Not Disturb.
We can hear and see you. So.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
No problem.
Yeah. So I think even though it's a super pro qualifier, the fact that like they maybe don't actually announce numbers weeks leading into the show, some people may be hesitant to sign up. So for example, if you're a middleweight and the promoter announces, hey, we already have 7 middleweights registered, we just need one more, and that middleweight class is a pro card. I think there's probably someone out there that's already prepping, that's on the line about doing a show around this time that would draw them to do that show.
Absolutely.
And they're keeping all of this information held back, and they're not sharing it, which I don't agree with. Like my class had 7 people. It was the largest class. So if there was one more, it would have been a quote unquote pro qualifier. Maybe if they put that information out there 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago that, hey, we have 7,
you would have got the 8th. Yeah.
Maybe we would have picked up the 8th, right? And so on and so forth for every division. But more importantly than that, I think we're doing a horrible job getting sponsorships. We're doing a horrible job of getting good stage content. So high quality stage photos, high quality stage videos that not only the promoters would be happy to share, but the athletes would be happy to share. Because the truth of the matter is the athletes have more followers than the promoters. So, like put it this way, in 2017, my stage pictures were so bad, I didn't want to share them. I posted more photos of me backstage in the hallway of a high school because the lighting was better than the stage.
Yeah. I've had that experience. It's terrible, man. It's
terrible.
Like you look back and you're like, this is my moment, and like it wasn't captured,
100%,
And we've talked about that at length with on this podcast with promoters, like the importance of that and how much we value that. And yeah, it's definitely overlooked by some, I would say. Not all. Right? Some get it right, but
sure. So like the chances of people winning are really slim in bodybuilding because it's not a win column and a loss column. You have first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, right? So it's not like a 50-50 kind of chance, right? But if you're a competitor and you can guarantee really good stage shots and you can guarantee that you're going to capture the moment you've been working for in a way that you can look back and reflect, that means a lot to the athlete. So maybe you end up doing a local NPC show, because you know that NPC show has really good lighting and you get really good stage photos, even if you're a natural, and you know that you're at a competitive disadvantage, but you're like, hey, at least, you know, my posing routine is going to be captured well, and the lighting's good, and the show is organized, and they say I'm going to compete at 9 a.m. and I actually compete at 9 a.m. It doesn't start 45 minutes late, and so on and so forth, right? So there's a lot of improvements that we need to make across all natural bodybuilding organizations.
It makes it more professional. I mean, it just seems amateurish, and you know.
Totally agree. So it breaks my heart, bro. Like, all I want to see is the natural bodybuilding scene grow. I hate that we have like 6 different orgs. I think that's terrible because, for example, if we were one united organization, I'm sure there was plenty of shows on September 25th was the Saturday, right? So instead of, you know, 3 athletes doing this show and another 6 doing that and another 4 doing that, you now have 13 athletes doing the same show, and it's way more competitive. It's stacked. The promoters make more money, so they can give away more prize money. The pros are happier. The AMs are happier. You know, just there's a lot of work to do, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all would agree with that. That's something we've touched on quite a few times, but unfortunately, we're not in positions of power. So
yeah, I remember, man. The first time I attended the Natural Mania was 2012. Their weight classes, their bantam class had at least 8. Their lightweight class had like close to 12. Their middleweight class had like 18, 20 people. They had to do multiple call outs. So they brought everyone out. And then it was top 5. Okay, second call out. Okay, third call out. And that was freaking exciting. I felt like I was like
awesome.
At like the Natural Arnold kind of thing. And it was just the freaking Natural Mania. We had international competitors doing the Natural Mania and the Hercules because our international affiliates weren't as popular, and we weren't in every country. So we would have international people flying over to New York to do the Natural Mania because it was like the show to do in New York. Like, it was sick, you know? And I've seen it slowly but surely just like dwindle down. The Herc and the Natural Mania were like sick shows. So it's tough to see, man. It's tough to see. Anyway, let's kind of shift gears a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. So that was that show. That was Natural Mania. What's on the horizon for you? What's coming up?
Yeah, the plan is do a NPC show here in Florida for fun. It's called the Hurricane Bay. It's in St. Petersburg. I'll do classic physique and open bodybuilding. And then my real focus, my real goal is to win the Monster Mash in November in Massachusetts, and then compete as a pro on the 7th, the very next day.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's cool. So they do the amateurs on Saturday and the pros on Sunday. So if I were to turn pro, then I can just make my pro debut the very next day.
What date is that in November again? I'm trying to remember.
November 6th and 7th. It's the same show Josh is doing. We're going to compete together.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's going to be sick. I mean, that's what we were supposed to do in New York. So,
I know you were. And
then we can make it happen by the end of the season.
Awesome.
He kicked COVID pretty well, though. I tell you what.
Yeah, he did, man. It was, definitely hard for a week, but he's back to it now.
Yeah, I was really glad to see that.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got an idea of what you're doing with your competitive aspirations going forward. Talk about how you got here, how you made the improvements, because I don't know if the viewers haven't seen the comparison photo that you put up recently, they need to go look at it, because it's actually very, very remarkable, the amount of change that you made in relatively short amount of time. We're not talking 1 to 2 years, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a pretty big amount of muscle density and change that you were able to create there.
Yeah, thanks, man. So in 2011 I was 140 pounds on stage. In 2013 I was 154 pounds, so that was just insane. But again, I was not untrained, but I was basically an extreme novice teenager that never ate in a calorie surplus, competed for the first time, stepped on stage at 140 at 5'7", and then put on 14 pounds of stage weight really quick. That was with like a basically like a 16-month, 15-month off season, and then 3 more months of cutting. So yeah, I made a tremendous amount of progress from, being 19 to 21. And then in 2017, I only increased my stage weight by like 2 pounds. I went from 154 to 157. So I almost feel like I put more muscle on in the last 4 years from the ages of 25 to 29 than I did from the ages of 21 to 25. So I think that's pretty darn cool. Last week, my stage weight was like around 160 pounds compared to 156. So I'm up 4 pounds, but my glutes aren't as conditioned as they were in 2017 right now. So the added muscle is clear, but I need to get a bit tighter for sure. And I definitely will. I'll be inside out come November.
I mean, that was your first show though. So,
Yeah, it was my first show. I don't like using that as an excuse at all.
No, it's I get that, but I mean, yeah, it's you're gonna get tighter as the season progresses, most likely, more than likely.
100%. This prep was way different. So in 2017, I went from basically like 172 pounds down to 156 in a longer period of time, probably in like 22, 24 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And this prep, I went from 183 all the way down to 160 in 21 weeks. So the rate of loss was faster. I honestly think I preserved more muscle this go around though, because the training has been just phenomenal. The approach is way better. My frequency is way lower. My volume is way lower, but my intensity is just through the roof.
You think your execution's better too then? Is that
way better? Way better.
That's something I cleaned up and I noticed a big difference from.
Yeah,
I think it's underrated. I think, people look at numbers on paper and then forget to look at the execution.
Yeah. And also the exercise selection is just smarter for my frame and, what gives me the best stimulus to fatigue ratio. It's a much smarter layout.
So give some examples of that for the listeners, because I know that's going to be very individual. All of us probably have very different choices, but just so they have an example.
100%. Literally the only time a barbell is in my hand this entire prep is for RDLs and conventional deadlifts. I'm not doing barbell back squats. I'm not doing barbell incline. I'm not doing barbell flat. They just don't fit me well. And then as I get leaner and leaner and lose some of that stability in those movements, my strength is shit. My force output kind of sucks there. So doing a lot more machine work has been just a great tool for me to maintain strength or progress strength on so many lifts. I hit hack squat PRs 2 weeks out, lifetime PRs, 23 pounds lighter. I hit some pull down PRs, pretty recently. The only thing I lost a little bit of strength in is like overhead shoulder press machines and like incline chest press machines, but not too much, not too much at all. Everything else is almost progressing, man. So I think the muscle retention has been freaking phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm happy about it.
So are there any large kind of concepts with your training that you've changed that you feel have allowed you to maintain the intensity that you are now beyond just slightly lower volume, kind of the big things that you mentioned already?
Yes. Resting when I actually am exhausted and know I need to rest, rather than saying, okay, it's Monday and I need to train this day, or, I have a quote unquote 7-day split and I need to train Monday, Tuesday, and I take off Wednesdays and Sundays. So I need to train Thursday, Friday, Saturday, regardless of what's going on in my life. I've been taking rest days like in a very auto-regulated approach, or just more frequently than ever. So rather than like being hardcore like I used to and like pushing through it and going to the gym at like 10 p.m. at night after a long day and having a really bad session where I wasn't able to maintain numbers and numbers regressed, I would just fucking go lay down and try to get better sleep and then smash it the next day. So I'm ready to go the next day.
So I think something that you kind of come from a mentality where you're super hardcore. So like it actually probably takes more effort for you to take your foot off the gas pedal than it does to put it on the gas pedal. Like, so that I think for your situation, that probably works really well, because you're not just talking yourself out of a session because, oh, I'm diet fatigued and tired and exhausted because I'm dieting, that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah. So,
I'm sure that factored into your decision in doing that.
I agree. I would say it used to be harder for me to take the day off, but now it's not as much of like a mental struggle. It's like the perspective is no longer like, hey, you're being weak or you're being mentally weak if you take the day off and you go rest. It's more like, hey, I don't want to have a bad performance day and regress on my numbers and accumulate more fatigue. So not only do I have a bad session today, I probably have a bad session tomorrow, right? Because it compounds.
Yeah.
It's just a perspective shift. So it's like, rather than having a bad session today, it's not about being mentally weak. It's about getting the rest I need so I can smash it tomorrow and I can maintain my performance or progress and retain the tissue I'm currently holding. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So just a perspective shift, man. But I think it's been huge. There's, for the majority of prep, I went 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. And that's by far the lowest frequency I've ever done.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's more of the same, kind of talking about the quality over quantity and like really getting the intensity and the focus to your training, making sure you're effective with everything you're doing and not just going through the motions.
Super intentional, man. Yeah. Like I cut my junk. I used to do so much junk volume, man. Again, like people might perceive me as being very scientifically objective. So they might not think that I've made mistakes, 4 years ago, because I was well educated at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But man, you learn so much over time. Like nothing is a better teacher than time and experience. I don't care what letters you have behind your name, what research papers you read, whatever. None of that shit matters. There's plenty of freaking OGs in the sport that can auto-regulate because they know thyself and perform really well throughout an entire prep because they are quote unquote listening to their body, way better than someone who's like looking at a Excel spreadsheet and they're like, oh, I did RPE on this day, so I'm going to do this the next day,
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And I think as you age, Dan and I talk about this all the time, how effective you can be with one set is like deadly after a couple years of training. Like just myself today, I started a full body split. I was on paper going to do 3 sets of leg extension, 3 sets of seated hamstring curl. I did 2 and I was wrecked because I hit them like beautifully and they were great sets. And I walked away. I was like, nope, I don't even need the third because I know I got to hit legs again in 2 days. And if I do that, it's probably not going to be great. So
sure.
Yeah, the more experience you have under your belt, the more you know when to make those calls. Yeah, I've done similar where I'm like, I have 3 sets on paper, but I'm wrecked after 2, and I'm like, 3 would be a bad idea. I could take a third next week if I want to, if I deem it's appropriate. I can always take that third set, later in the mesocycle. But it's just like,
I agree, man. And I would rather do less working sets per exercise and more exercise variation than the same, not like, so you, like, let's just say we did 10 working sets in one workout. I would rather do 2 working sets of 5 exercises rather than 3 working sets of 3 and one of those is 4 and then the other 2 are 3. You know what I'm saying? I do think that there is a pretty large benefit to hitting your muscles from different angles, training its different muscle actions, or utilizing exercises that overload a different portion of the range, rather than having really, really limited exercise selection, but doing a bunch of sets. Because like, why don't you just do like 2 to 3 amazing sets instead of 4 to 5 sets? Like, I just don't get the 4 to 5 set thing anymore. For bodybuilding, I get it for powerlifting because you're really focused on improving motor control and learning that movement pattern. So sure, do submaximal work and really hone in on your technique. But for hypertrophy, if you're doing 4 or 5 sets, I don't know what your intensity is like or what's the point of it. And I see some people like they're maintaining their reps with the same load. I'm just like, your RPE is way too low. Your true RPE, not what you think it is way too low. If you can get 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 for 5 sets, like I just don't understand that.
Yeah. I do it for a few movements, but I'll usually see, it starts at 12 and then ends up at like 6 or 7, by the end of it.
That makes sense, right? You're accumulating fatigue, so at least you have the appropriate intensity there.
It's usually only certain movements and certain movements that I need a lot more volume, like side delts, like. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could theoretically, do other movements. That would be another option, but I need a lot of volume for side delts, regardless of proximity to failure. Like,
and that makes sense. At least it's an isolation movement that's not extremely systemically fatiguing. You're targeting your muscle. The only thing I would say is like, okay, if I'm doing 5 sets of side delts, I personally do this. I do maybe 3 sets of a dumbbell where it's overloaded in the short position. And then I do 2 sets on a cable where it's overloaded more in that lengthen range. So I still did 5 sets of the same movement, which is lateral raise, but I gave 3 sets
stimulus
where it was here and then 3 sets where it's harder here. So I agree. Like I'm not trying to trash like total sets of volume, but just consider just different exercise selection. The same concept would be like, maybe you do 2 or 3 sets of a pec deck machine cable fly, like machine fly, and it's really hard in that shortened position. And then at the end of your workout, you do 2 sets of dumbbell flies where it's really overloading the lengthen. Yeah, you still did 5 sets, but it's a different stimulus. So you're not just like beating the shit out of the same thing.
Yeah, I've applied that principle to biceps, because I know you did a study specifically on biceps, and I pretty much regularly run at least 2 bicep variations in a single session. One in a more lengthened position, one in a more shortened position, and I'll usually vary the grip. Like one's a hammer, one's a non-hammer.
Nice.
And I would say like the psychological aspect of 4 to 5 sets, I would really struggle to find more than a small percentage of bodybuilders that can really attack 5 sets with matched intensity. Not like RPE, but like the intent of their exercise. You're always going to save those first 2 sets because those last 3 are just going to suck. Yeah. And I don't care how hardcore you are, like something in the back of your head is always going to be like, let's pull away from that 1 extra rep. Well, that 1 extra rep could be hugely important long-term.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So
I think we're running low on time here. So
okay. So that might be
in terms of recording, but
yeah. That might be a good little point to kind of taper off that. Chris, if you have any like key bulletin points that you want to throw out, a lot of the things that we try and really, dive into are the topics that'll help the young lifter. Because we all started somewhere. A lot of us didn't have the mentors that hopefully we're trying to become now. So if you have, key knowledge, a couple takeaways for the younger guys.
Yeah, man. This entire quality over quantity thing we've been discussing, I think it can be applied to a lot of different variables within our bodybuilding approaches. So definitely think, start there. Don't always think doing more is better. Understand the importance of proper recovery, proper sleep, and literally like progressive training rather than just like intense training. Like you can go hard and have a really hard training session, but are you actually getting better from week to week or meso to meso and then, block to block? So I think that's really, really important. Obviously the basics are just log booking and not changing so many variables so frequently that you never really get the opportunity to progress and hone in on stuff. But I've been there, I've been there when I was younger, constantly switching stuff up. And I spun my wheels for a while, man, especially before I started competitive bodybuilding. I was still into weight training and my goal was hypertrophy. And I stayed, 145 pounds for a long time because I just didn't get some basic foundational stuff. So I've been there.
Nice. And for the people that want to, yeah, absolutely. For everybody, regardless of your training experience, you're always going to find someone with a slightly different opinion. and different experiences. And that, especially in a sport like this, that is, we try and be analytical, we try and be objective, but so much of it is personal preference and, listening to your body. It's always good to listen to those opinions. So Chris, for the people that want to find you throughout the socials, throughout the contacts, how do we get in touch?
Sure. So on social, it's really basic, just my full name, Christopher.Barakat. My website, you can catch my team and I at schoolofgains.com. Gains is spelled with a Z. And then you can also go to competitivebreed.com just to kind of see what the competitive athletes are doing, since this is more of a bodybuilding focused thing. But all of like my resources, so training articles, videos, programs, coaching information, that's all at schoolofgains.com right now. And that's basically it. Feel free to shoot me a DM or contact me via email if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer questions via DM or email. I remember when I was a younger kid in this sport, I would email people like Dr. Joe, and I've emailed Lane back in 2013. And, I've emailed people that I looked up to before getting to know them, and they got back to me. And I always appreciated that. So I try to do the same for younger people in the sport, trying to get involved and just take the right approach. So feel free to reach out.
All right. Perfect.
Awesome,
I would definitely
man.
take that up if you're listening. Chris is a huge wealth of resource, information, all that. So that'll wrap it up for this week's episode. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that stuff, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you found us. We're trying to get to 10K on Instagram. So let's make that happen.
Make it happen.
Thank you, Chris, for joining us. And thank you for the kind words too.
No, really for sure, man. Thank you guys for promoting the sport, man. It's awesome. Keep up the good work.